Good morning, Tampa Bay. What is going on? I thought I had this all figured out, but apparently I don't. Welcome, Channelside in the Morning Live on the Channelside Sports Network. Man, we got a great day for you today. I don't know when this actually started, so I apologize if you just sat there and watched my stupid face. But we are switched over. We are always you got to improve, man. You have to improve. Thank you for those who are joined in. Obviously, we are exclusive to the YouTube channel. We're gonna roll through this. We're gonna see what happens. Thank you for those who are tuned in. If you're not tuned in, then hopefully you're gonna catch this on the back end, and then we will. We'll catch you on the flip side. Holler at me on Twitter, do something, and we'll debate and we'll talk about this stuff kind of going forward and see where we are. NFL Week 1. Look, the game was a blowout last night, right? Let's be real here. The game was a blowout, but it was so great just to see NFL football back, wasn't it? I mean, honestly, it really was. It was such a great thing for us to see, and I was so pumped. I was so excited. Obviously, we were hoping for a better game. I'm really shocked that we saw zero. We saw no Allen Robinson at all. I'm really shocked about that. I think that to me was kind of a crazy scenario and a crazy situation that there was no Allen Robinson to be found. We knew that Cooper Kupp was going to kind of have the issue forced, if you will. But it was a very strange dynamic seeing Allen Robinson basically be invisible when you've got, you realistically, you had what? You have a legitimate wide receiver 1 in Allen Robinson or wide receiver 2. But he wasn't utilized at all. And that's kind of sad. But, honestly, it is what it is. Man, Matthew Stafford came back down to earth real quick, though, last night, didn't he? Good Lord. It was kind of bananas. It really was. But, yeah, Buffalo really showed out, did they not? Buffalo showed up, and they showed us exactly what we were expecting out of Buffalo. They showed us that they're here to play. They're here to challenge and contend for the Super Bowl. And look, we've had a lot of people were not really giving the Rams any sort of props or any sort of credit coming into this game. Buffalo was favored, which kind of tells you everything that you need to know is that, hey, if Buffalo is favored, here's the realistic aspect of it. If Buffalo was the favored team in this, you know that there's some sort of Super Bowl hangover, apparently. Even for the winners, you got the banner raising, Andrew Whitworth was out there kind of hyping up the crowd. You had The Rock out there hyping up the crowd, and your mind's not really in the game, right? That's kind of where you are, at least in my opinion. Your mind's not necessarily in the game because there's so much other, dog and pony show that's just going on outside of the game. And it really, really makes it kind of difficult if you're trying to focus, right? That's what it is for me. If you're trying to focus, I think that being the Super Bowl winning team is harder to overcome in Week 1 than being the losing Super Bowl team, because we know that all the time they talk about Super Bowl hangover for the losers, so we're expecting some sort of trickle back, if you will, for the Cincinnati Bengals, but I don't think that that's the case. I really don't. I think that we're looking at a Rams team that is kind of exposed, not necessarily fully exposed, but kind of exposed. They lost Von Miller. You didn't realize that Von Miller was still going to be such a legitimate threat. At least I didn't. I didn't expect Von Miller to come out and just destroy destroy the Rams. He talked about after the game that he was actually warming up on the incorrect side of the field, which I thought was crazy because he wasn't there the entire season. But nonetheless, he got his second Super Bowl with the Rams, so I guess I understand it to a certain extent. Darrell Henderson getting the majority of the carries I thought was very interesting because you're looking at he's not supposed to be RB1. That's realistically, that's where he stands, is he's not supposed to be RB1. And he had the vast majority of the carries for the Rams over Cam Akers. So you have to wonder, is Cam Akers, are they going to take it easy with Cam Akers? Is he coming back? Is he going to be slow? It's really weird because when he came back last season, Cam Akers was a freaking beast. Cam Akers was untouchable. He was unstoppable. And he was just a fantastic returner. Nobody expected Cam Akers to come back from an Achilles, A, that quick, and B, that good. That was the big take home for Cam Akers last season, is how quickly he came back and how effective he was. So seeing Darrell Henderson take the majority of the snaps last night, I thought was very interesting. And I'm okay with that, right? I'm okay with that. Thank you everybody that is tuning in, bearing with me while we run through some, I don't even want to say technical difficulties. I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants here. I'm trying this, we're switching over from our previous streaming provider. Now it's all in-house, controlled by me. And this is new to me, so I apologize, if something's kind of going a little bit crazy. But it's getting better. You got to be improving. You got to move forward. You have to plunge forward at all times. If you're not plunging forward, you're in trouble. That's the reality of how this industry works. If you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards very quick. If you're not, what does Henry Yoho from Bolts by the Bay say? If you're either getting good quick or you're getting bad, something along those lines. We'll have him on very soon because, hey, hockey is not that far off. 32 days away from some Tampa Bay Lightning action, guys. Best time of the year. Best time of the season for any sports fan, especially if you are lucky enough to be just like us in Tampa, where all of your teams are pretty damn good. We're going to run through the slate, run it right through the NFL slate this week. Obviously, last night kickoff. I had the Bills ahead of the game. I think a lot of people had the Bills ahead of the Rams going in. Rams were underdogs by 2.5. I think that was a fair statement because Buffalo was one blown play away from knocking off the Kansas City Chiefs. And we could have been possibly talking about, a Buffalo team that may have been able to beat Cincinnati. It's possible. Is it factual? We don't know. Sunday slate, 1 p.m. kickoff, New Orleans and Atlanta. New Orleans is favored by 5.5. Over under is at 43. I like it. Personally, I like I like New Orleans, and I think New Orleans is a better team. Although I have been very high on Atlanta being an underdog team. I think that if Atlanta comes out and somehow gets an upset over New Orleans, I think we need to look at Atlanta as a viable option in the NFC South. Not to take over the NFC South from the Buccaneers, but as this team actually deserves a little bit of props. They deserve some credit. And this team is probably going to be slept on for the majority of the season, if we're being totally honest. I think New Orleans, we don't know if Michael Thomas is going to be available for week 1 as it is. Alvin Kamara is likely not going to be suspended this season, which is, hey, it is what it is. He's not going to be suspended. They have Jarvis Landry, Chris Olave, Jameis Winston is back. And I think Jameis Winston last season showed us and proved enough to us that he's a good game manager. He went 5-2 before he went down with his ACL injury. He wasn't making those 50-50 throws any longer, which usually turned out to be, I guess, 50-50 is fair because he had 30-30. But I like New Orleans because I liked New Orleans preseason wise better than I like Atlanta. But I'm very interested in seeing how Atlanta does perform in week 1 because it's a division game. Division games are always tougher. You're always likely to get an upset more so in a division game than you are in a regular, in an interconference game. So it'll be definitely interesting to see how this plays out. San Francisco and Chicago. San Francisco favored by 7.5. Over under is 40.5. I like San Francisco. Chicago to me is another one of those kind of sleeper teams because we don't know how Chicago's going to perform. Right? That's the thing for me with Chicago is we don't know how they're going to perform. We don't know if the coaching staff is going to have everybody ready. And that's just, that's the fact of it is we don't know if the coaching staff is going to have every single player ready. We don't know how Justin Fields is going to respond. Allen Robinson obviously is gone in LA and he's just as invisible in LA as he was in Chicago, at least through game 1. Which sucks. I had him as my my showdown captain last night on DraftKings, and I really thought that Matthew Stafford was going to try to force the issue, and all he did honestly was force the issue with Cooper Kupp yet again. So I guess jokes on me in terms of thinking that Matthew Stafford was going to try and move the ball around. I like San Francisco. I think San Francisco's just got a better roster for what we know altogether. Eli Mitchell is a stud at running back. Of course, Deebo Samuel is going to be great. And, I think that Trey Lance is further along than Justin Fields. Now, that honestly, though, that could be because Matt Nagy didn't know what the hell he was doing. We saw a lot of good players kind of fall back because Matt Nagy doesn't know what he's doing. So it's very possible. It's very possible that Justin Fields comes out firing on all cylinders, looking much better than he was before, and it's entirely possible. But I still like San Francisco. You got to give the slant to Kyle Shanahan. That's really what it boils down to. AFC North divisional matchup, Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. Cincinnati's favored by 6.5. Look, I've been very adamant all offseason. I do not see a Super Bowl hangover in Cincinnati's future. I don't see them struggling. I see them coming out. I see them as a better team because they've got protection for Joe Burrow. Jamar Chase, sure, defenses are going to understand how to match up and defend Jamar Chase better. That's great. You've got T. Higgins. T. Higgins had 1,000 yards. You got Tyler Boyd, who is still a very legitimate threat. He was arguably he was wide receiver 2, wide receiver 1 before Jamar Chase came to Cincinnati. Oh, and don't forget Joe Mixon. Like you've got to look at the Cincinnati Bengals and think that there's no possible way that there's going to be a Super Bowl hangover for this team. For me, like I said, I don't buy it. I think that Cincinnati is too good and they're too young. That's another thing that I think we have to take into consideration is that the Cincinnati Bengals are such a young team that I don't even know if they understand what a Super Bowl hangover truly is. I think that to me, that's the most important part for the Cincinnati Bengals is that they don't understand what a Super Bowl hangover is yet. So I think Cincinnati is a very viable threat, especially in the AFC, although I do like a couple of the other AFC teams. That's where I'm at. I think Cincinnati's still going to win. I think the AFC North still runs through Cincinnati. We do need to watch out for Baltimore in the AFC North. I think Pittsburgh is going to take a possibly a year regression. Figure out what they've got going on at quarterback. Unless Mitchell Trubisky, who was named starter, I've told you guys this before. I'm very high on Mitchell Trubisky, very high, because I think Mitchell Trubisky has a lot to prove. I think he's going to have a chip on his shoulder. I think that he's going to come out and he has something to prove. And Mike Tomlin is one of the best coaches at motivating his team. They still have a top 5 defense. Deontay Johnson's still a top 10 wide receiver. Najee Harris is a top 5 running back. The weapons are there. Freiermuth is coming on from, a fantastic coming out party last season. Chase Claypool has all of the talent. He just needs to get his mental game. He needs to fix his mindset. And we can't forget about George Pickens. Like, you can't forget about that. These are guys that are going to be playmakers, and you can't sleep on the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I do think the AFC North is one of the tougher divisions. I think Cleveland is going to finish at the bottom of the barrel, largely in part because Deshaun Watson's going to be out for those 11 games for his misconduct violation and suspension for, all of the stuff that we're not going to talk about anymore because I'm tired of talking about Deshaun Watson and his suspension. But I think the AFC North is still going to run through Cincy. I think that Baltimore, if J.K. Dobbins can stay healthy, I think Baltimore is going to possibly challenge, because you have to remember Baltimore had one of the best records in the league without Gus Edwards, without J.K. Dobbins. The problem for Baltimore is when Lamar Jackson got hurt, everything started just kind of crumbling and falling down around them. And Rashad Bateman is supposed to be able to take over for wide receiver 1. That's the problem for me with the Baltimore Ravens. I know they're taking on the Jets on Sunday, and the Jets are a largely unproven team. Zach Wilson is out. We know that Zach Wilson is out. Joe Flacco will be starting a quarterback, and I think Joe Flacco is one of those serviceable veteran players. He's not going to shine in any aspect, but he knows enough about the game. I mean, Joe Flacco's been in the NFL since 1982, it seems. There was one time where he was a Super Bowl winner and he held the Ravens hostage for a shitload of money. And he was just, he never lived up to that. He was kind of like Amari Cooper in Dallas, where he was a great quarterback, or Amari Cooper was a great wide receiver. He still put up numbers, but he didn't put up numbers to validate the expensive contract that he had. And I think that's what we're going to see. Is it going to be a quote unquote revenge game for Joe Flacco going against his old team in the Baltimore Ravens? I don't think so. I don't think that the Jets have the offensive weapons in the skill positions yet. And I think that's largely the issue for the New York Jets, is that they don't have the skill position weapons yet. Michael Carter, Elijah Moore, like, these guys are developing, but I don't think they're quite there yet. But I like Baltimore. Baltimore's favored by 7.5. Over under is 44.5. I'm probably going to take the under on that if I'm betting. But I like the Ravens. I like the Ravens, especially over the Jets, because we know what we're getting with the Ravens. Even if J.K. Dobbins cannot play, we know what we're getting with the Ravens. And I expect a huge uptick for Rashad Bateman this season. And we have a healthy Lamar Jackson, who is absolutely yoked if you look at all of those pictures that he's been posting on his Instagram. Philly traveling to Detroit. First sellout for week 1. Home game for the Detroit Lions. They're buying in, man. People up in Detroit, my people up in Detroit are buying in. And I'm taking Detroit with the upset over the Philadelphia Eagles. And it's not because it's not a homer pick. And I'll tell you why. Philly's favored by 4.5. I think that Philly is getting a lot of respect because I think they do have arguably one of the best rosters in the NFL. But here's where my take with the Philadelphia Eagles lies is I think that Detroit is not getting enough respect. I think the Detroit Lions, they didn't really address their defense as much as they should. But I'm still expecting DeAndre Swift to lead the NFC in rushing yards. I've said that before, and I'll happily die on that hill. I think DeAndre Swift, and if not rushing yards, it's going to be in all-purpose yards. I believe that. I think DeAndre Swift is so good that he is able to. He's so elusive. He has all of the weapons. He has all of the tools. He's another guy. I mean, if you watched Hard Knocks, Deuce Staley was hammering it in his head. Hit the hole. Be confident in yourself. Be confident in your abilities and just perform. And I think that's realistic. That's where we are in terms of where DeAndre Swift is. DJ Chark, I expect to have a big game. I'm on Ross St. Brown. Look, I've been very adamant that I think if you're playing fantasy, Amon-Ra St. Brown is a league-winning wide receiver that you're going to find in the later rounds because he's not a sexy name because he's a Detroit Lion. Outside of Calvin Johnson and arguably Golden Tate while he was in Detroit, especially in PPR leagues, you got to remember Golden Tate was a yak king his entire time in Detroit. But I think outside of Calvin Johnson and Golden Tate, they haven't really had like that sexy wide receiver. And I think Amon-Ra St. Brown is that guy. Add the complement of DJ Chark. TJ Hawkinson is healthy. TJ Hawkinson is a wild card for the Detroit Lions. He's in a contract year. We've seen David Njoku fully loaded. I mean, look at the contract that David Njoku got. Dustin Knox just got a ridiculous contract from the Buffalo Bills. TJ Hawkinson's got to perform this season. He's got to perform this season. We've seen flashes of what TJ Hawkinson is going to be in this league, and it's scary. It's a very scary situation for TJ Hawkinson because he is damn good. He can be, in that conversation. Realistically, he can be in that conversation with Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce and George Kittle among some of the greatest tight ends in the NFL. He has the skills and he has the tools. The one ability that he is just lacking is availability because he's often injured. But I think the Detroit Lions are going to upset the Philadelphia Eagles. I really do. I think that the Philadelphia Eagles know that they're a really well rostered and well put together team. And I really think that people are going to slight the Detroit Lions. Now, I wouldn't take the spread. I wouldn't take the points for the Lions. I think that, in terms of a straight money line, I think the Detroit Lions win. Over under is set to 48.5. I think that is that's fourth highest of the week of the remaining games. Last night was a 52 over under. But I think that's where I think I'm very confident in the Detroit Lions pulling off the upset over the Philadelphia Eagles. Call me crazy, but I think so. New England Patriots and Miami Dolphins. Dolphins are favored by 3.5. Obviously, they're playing at home. It's a 46 over under. I like the Dolphins, but I also like the under. I think that Mike McDaniel is going to come out and try to put the league on notice. I think that that's what we're going to expect from Mike McDaniel. I think we're going to see a Mike McDaniel that wants to come out and say, hey, guys, Tua's here. Tua has been a good quarterback this entire time. I think he's very adamant about that. And so is Tyreek Hill. And Tyreek Hill is a good enough wide receiver to where he can make that happen. And here's the crazy part for the Miami Dolphins is we've been talking about Tyreek Hill, Tyreek Hill, Tyreek Hill. Dude, they have Jalen Waddle on that team too. Jalen Waddle, who caught 100 receptions last season. Like, you got to remember that. They've got Mike Gesicki, who is possibly on the trade block. So Mike McDaniel's a smart guy. If we're looking at Mike McDaniel, who wants to trade Mike Gesicki, you know what he's going to do is he's going to have Tua force feed Mike Gesicki and boost up that trade value because he's not a dummy. Mike McDaniel is one of the smart, and it's not just because he looks like a Starbucks barista. Mike McDaniel is legitimately one of the smartest guys. Honestly, he really is one of the smartest guys in the NFL. Check his resume. Seriously, go check Mike McDaniel's resume. I know people want to clown him and go, oh, look at it. He's such a hipster. Look, oh, I don't care. I don't care one bit that Mike McDaniel looks like a hipster, looks like he works at Starbucks or Barnes & Noble or wherever whatever jokes that you want to play on Mike McDaniel. I don't care about those. He's a smart guy. Mike McDaniel he's arguably the reason why Deebo Samuel looked so good last season. Now, it's not a knock on Deebo Samuel, but Deebo Samuel had a lot of plays designed in his favor, right? That's where Deebo Samuel shined, largely in part because he was given the opportunities by plays designed by Mike McDaniel. So you have to be realistic and think that, okay, Mike McDaniel is in love with Tua Tagovailoa. He is their quarterback. This is his third season. He's under contract for another 2 seasons. So make it work. Figure out what you've got. This is a prove-it year for Tua Tagovailoa in Miami because you've got all the weapons. You've got Chase Edmonds. You've got Raheem Mostert in your backfield. You've got Mike Gesicki, who came on the scene last season and kind of came out of nowhere. You've got arguably one of the top 4 wide receiving combinations in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle in the league. This is it. This is it for Tua this season. You have to make things happen. Jacksonville's traveling to Washington. Washington's favored by 2.5. I like Jacksonville in this. I really like Jacksonville in this. I like the Commanders' defense. I love Terry McLaurin. I like Antonio Gibson, kind of splitting time with J.D. McKissick. But I'm not a Carson Wentz guy. I've not been a Carson Wentz guy ever. Carson Wentz arguably is the reason why the Indianapolis Colts did not make the playoffs last season. I know it's a team game, but Carson Wentz stalled nearly every drive on his own from bad reads and bad decision-making against the Jacksonville Jaguars last season, which largely cost the Colts their opportunity at making the playoffs. So when I tell you that I'm not a Carson Wentz guy for that reason, that's why I'm not a Carson Wentz guy. He's got a lot to prove to me. I know he's making a lot of money, but he's got a lot to prove to me. I think Jacksonville is another one of those teams that's going to be slept on a lot this season. You know, Urban Meyer is gone. Doug Peterson is back. He's got a lot to prove. Trevor Lawrence didn't have a great rookie season, but he didn't have a real good supporting cast from the top down. You know, Travis Etienne was out. James Robinson got banged up. His leading receiver is, I think, Marvin Jones is the oldest starting wide receiver in the NFL, who was still playing very, very, very good. Like, don't get me wrong. Marvin Jones is playing fantastic. But now you paid all of that money to Christian Kirk. You know, he's got to be your wide receiver 1. I don't like that they traded Laviska Shenault. I think they should have given Laviska one final season with Trevor Lawrence and a coach that understands how to coach at the NFL level. I think for me, that would have been ideal. I think that would have been, you know, I'm a big Laviska Shenault fan. So I think that would have been cool had they done that, but obviously they didn't. But I think a lot of people are going to sleep on the Jaguars this season, and I think they're going to come out, they're going to go 1-0, and they're going to make a lot of people's heads kind of go, huh? I think they're going to, I think that the Jags are going to turn a lot of heads in week 1. I actually think the Jags might beat the Washington Commanders by double digits. I really think so. I think they've got so much to prove. And I think that this is a situation for the Jags that can't get any better. I think I'm high on the Jags. I've said that, a handful of times during the offseason, but I'm high on the Jags. Cleveland, Carolina. This is the closest spread. It's a 0.5-point spread in favor of Carolina. Carolina is going to run through Christian McCaffrey. I think realistically, the slant for me is that Baker Mayfield is a better quarterback than Jacoby Brissett. Personally speaking, I like Cleveland over Carolina in this game. I think that the offensive line for Cleveland is going to outperform the defensive line for the Carolina Panthers. I like Baker Mayfield better than Jacoby Brissett. But I don't think Christian McCaffrey is going to come back and be the Christian McCaffrey that we all once knew and loved. I think that's going to be the issue for Christian McCaffrey is I think that he's been run into the ground. And you never hope for that for any player. I don't care if he's a division rival for the Buccaneers. Like, you don't ever hope for that. You don't want that. You want the best players to play at their optimal level. That's what makes football exciting, is everybody playing. That's why we still talk about the Buffalo Bills and Kansas City Chiefs playoff game from last season, because everybody performed well. And that's what you want. So you want Christian McCaffrey coming out and looking like the Christian McCaffrey from a couple of years ago when he set the NFL record for the most scrimmage yards. That's the Christian McCaffrey you do want, because you want to see him perform every week. I think at this point, if we're going to compare the quarterbacks between Baker Mayfield and Jacoby Brissett, I think I would give the slight edge to DJ Moore over Amari Cooper. Just a slight edge, but nothing too crazy. But I think that's where I would go. Is I like the combination of Baker Mayfield with DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson better than I like the combination of Donovan Peoples-Jones and Amari Cooper with Jacoby Brissett. I just think that's a better pairing. I think the Cleveland defense is better. And I think that's where your difference is. The offensive line is going to outperform Carolina's defensive line. And I think Cleveland has a better defense by a small margin. I think Cleveland has a better defense than the Carolina Panthers do. And remember, the Panthers last season came out firing, and they had like a top 4 defense for I don't know, I think it was like 6 or 7 weeks. And everybody kept going, well, yeah, no, it was 5 weeks. I apologize. Because everybody kept going, well, look at who they've played, because they had a very easy beginning quarter of their season. And I know, a large part does depend on that, but you can't hold that against them. You play who you play. You play who's on the schedule. And, that's who there was. It wasn't college, where you have the opportunity to say, yeah, do we really want to play this team? I don't know do we want to play this team at home? Do we want to play this team away? I'm not really sure. But then everything kind of fell apart for the Carolina Panthers. And I think the Panthers are possibly, I showed you my division rankings last Friday. I think that the Falcons and the Panthers are largely interchangeable to finish 3rd and 4th in the NFC South. And it all depends on Christian McCaffrey. And I've had the opportunity to draft Christian McCaffrey twice in my fantasy leagues, and I have passed on him both times because I'm not sold on Christian McCaffrey anymore. I'm not. He's burned me too many times, and he's burned just his entire fan base too many times because his body can't hold up to what it once was. Indianapolis and Houston. Indianapolis is favored by 7.5. I like Indianapolis. I think Matt Ryan's going to have a fantastic season with Michael Pittman Jr. and T.Y. Hilton and Jonathan Taylor. I did say earlier in the week, you have to realize that the last time Matt Ryan had a roster similarly to this, and I know, Julio Jones was a freak that season, but he went to the Super Bowl the last time he had offensive weapons like this, and Jonathan Taylor is better than Devontae Freeman ever was. Jonathan Taylor is arguably the best running back in the NFL. I know we got to give props to Derrick Henry, but I think Jonathan Taylor might have the edge on Derrick Henry, especially after breaking his foot. I think we have to be realistic about the Derrick Henry situation is that, hey, he's a large dude. And when you have a broken foot, like look at Yao Ming. Yao Ming was taller than the average Asian man. But once he broke his foot, it just kept breaking over and over because he was bigger than his body is supposed to be. And that's kind of the same thing with Derrick Henry. So I think that's why I'm giving the edge to Jonathan Taylor as far as like the best running back in the NFL. I like everything that the Indianapolis Colts has on offense and defense, especially over the Houston Texans. I'm not sold on the Houston Texans. I think the franchise is arguably the worst. Actually, I don't even think you can argue it anymore. I think it's the worst run franchise in the NFL. And, it really sucks for Brandon Cooks to be stuck in Houston. Davis Mills is better than Kyle Trask. Take that for whatever you want to take it for. But yeah, I'm definitely high on Indianapolis winning and going 1-0 on the season. The 4:25 afternoon games. New York Giants are traveling to Nashville to take on the Tennessee Titans. The Titans are favored by 5.5. I'm going to go with the Giants in this one. Yep, I'm going to go with the often injured New York Giants. I think the Giants have a lot to prove. Brian Daboll has a lot to prove. And I think that, while Tennessee last season, when they lost Derrick Henry, they were supposed to completely fall apart and completely crumble, and they didn't. And I think that says a lot about the Tennessee defense. Offensively, they still weren't doing a whole lot. They had a revolving door at running back. Ryan Tannehill, but they don't have A.J. Brown, nor do they have Julio Jones. And I know they were both kind of like in and out of the lineup because of health, but they don't have those guys anymore. Who's Ryan Tannehill going to pass the ball to? Like Robert Woods? Is Robert Wood like don't get me wrong, I love Bobby Trees, right? I love Robert Woods. But Ryan Tannehill is not Matthew Stafford. Ryan Tannehill cannot sling the ball like Matthew Stafford can. Ryan Tannehill has never thrown the ball like that. Even back when Jarvis Landry was routinely over 100 receptions with the Miami Dolphins. Like Ryan Tannehill was still not slinging the ball the way Matthew Stafford does. And that's kind of the game that Robert Woods plays. I think the New York Giants, this is the first time they're all healthy. Sterling Shepard, of course, is questionable because what would be an NFL game without a questionable Sterling Shepard? I think Daniel Jones in his last season is kind of on the hot seat. Saquon Barkley is kind of on the hot seat. Kenny Golladay is kind of on the hot seat as well. There's so many pieces to this team. I think Kadarius Toney wants to come out, has a chip on his shoulder. And remember when he destroyed the Dallas Cowboys last season, but then he kind of got injured and couldn't stay healthy. I think Brian Daboll is the guy to get everything right. And I think that's what makes this New York Giants team scary and dangerous because there's too many guys with too much to prove. The New York Giants arguably have more to prove than almost any other team in the NFL. And I think that's what makes them an interesting team to watch this season. Is Saquon going to be a New York Giant after the season? Don't know. Are they going to extend his contract? We don't know. It depends on how he performs. He could be a trade deadline move. You never know. There's so many question marks with the New York Giants team that it's hard to game plan to know like what to expect. I think when healthy, you've got to look at when Kenny Golladay was healthy in Detroit. Now, I know I just said that Ryan Tannehill is not Matthew Stafford, and I know Daniel Jones is not Matthew Stafford either, but Daniel Jones is not afraid to sling it. Daniel Jones is not afraid to air it out. Ryan Tannehill just doesn't. That's not something that's in his arsenal, is to air it out. Daniel Jones is not afraid to air it out. If you look at a healthy New York Giants team on paper, Daniel Jones, serviceable. Not great, not bad, serviceable. Wide receiving core of Kenny Golladay, Kadarius Toney, and Sterling Shepard, that's a good wide receiving core. Saquon Barkley, if Saquon Barkley's healthy this season, if he doesn't have, a after the play misstep and roll his ankle on a Dallas Cowboy like he did last season, I think Saquon Barkley is in the mix for a bounce back season and could be, top 8, top 6 in rushing yards this season. 4:25 afternoon game. Green Bay traveling up to Minnesota to take on the Vikings. Green Bay's favored by 1.5. I'm going to let you guys guess. Yes, I like the Vikings. I like the Vikings in this because for all of the questions that we have with the New York Giants, we have the same questions with the Green Bay Packers, but they're deeper because we don't know who's going to step up for Green Bay. Devontae Adams is gone. Aaron Rodgers is still there. Aaron Jones is still there, but who's going to step up for the Green Bay Packers? Is it going to be Allen Lazard? He might not even play week 1. Is Randall Cobb, did he find the fountain of youth over the offseason? Is he going to step up? Is it going to be is Sammy Watkins finally going to be healthy and live up to his draft position where the Buffalo Bills drafted him eons ago? I don't know. Is Robert Tonyan might not play. The offense is going to run through Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, and A.J. Dillon. With all of the uncertainty, I think you look at the Minnesota Vikings and go, Kirk Cousins gets hated on because he's such an overpaid quarterback, and he is overpaid. He shouldn't be making as much money as he is, but he is. And it is what it is. You can't debate that. The contract has been signed for years. He's making all of this money, but he's still finishing in the top 6 in every measurable quarterback this metric. So you can't knock Kirk Cousins that much. Justin Jefferson is getting every single season better. You got to watch out for Justin Jefferson. Adam Thielen. If Adam Thielen is healthy, Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson is the top 10 duo in the NFL. Irv Smith Jr. is turning it on. Don't forget about Dalvin Cook. And if Dalvin Cook goes down, Alexander Mattison might be probably the second best backup in the NFL behind Tony Pollard. I like Minnesota in this. I think Minnesota's got a good defense. And obviously Vegas has it very close for a reason. I think the NFC North is wide open this year. I really do. I think the NFC North is wide open, and this is the first time in forever. I know Aaron Rodgers had that quote, I think yesterday, where he's like, yeah, every year fans are going, oh, yeah, the NFC North is wide open. He's like, it's never been like that in my lifetime. Yeah, well, you choke in the playoffs as well. So all of those division titles, like what does that mean? What do all of these division titles, like what do they mean for you? They don't mean squat. A division title, you know what you can do with a division title? Nothing. You can wear your division championship t-shirt if you're a fan. Ask the Eagles fans how much they hated division championship shirts when Donovan McNabb was there. It's just not, it's not realistic. I I like Minnesota in this game. I think Green Bay is going to regress this season, and I think that it is what it is, man. Minnesota is going to go 1-0. I don't see the Green Bay Packers winning the NFC North this season. Every other season, when you have Devontae Adams and you have Aaron Rodgers, you have to give them that nod. But they don't have him this season. And you've got a non-healthy Allen Lazard who's supposed to be your wide receiver one. Is Dobbs going to be the wide receiver? There's way too much uncertainty in Green Bay for me to feel comfortable even taking them in the first game of the season. Kansas City traveling out west to take on the Arizona Cardinals. The Chiefs are favored by 6.5. I know I've not been high on the Chiefs, and I strongly believe that the Chiefs might finish last in the AFC West. I think that's going to be the toughest division. I think it's going to come down to a few layers of a tiebreaker. But I do like the Chiefs in game one. They're favored by 6.5, like I said. And I think that it's a little bit different for Arizona because DeAndre Hopkins is gone for the first 6 games of the season. And there's no Christian Kirk. Zach Ertz is banged up currently, which leaves an elder statesman, A.J. Green. And also Rondale Moore is banged up as well and has been limited in participation all week. They lost Chandler Jones. The Arizona Cardinals have arguably regressed a little bit. James Conner emerged last season when Chase Edmonds went down, which is great because James Conner is an awesome success story. I'm a fan of Kyler Murray. I think that you have to give the edge to Patrick Mahomes, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Travis Kelce in this game. Plus, we can't sleep on the Kansas City Chiefs defense. The Chiefs defense bailed out Patrick Mahomes last season. Yeah, I remember Patrick Mahomes looked very Jameis Winston-esque last season. And I'm not that big of a fan of how Patrick Mahomes plays the game of football. Is it fun to watch? It's fun to watch, but it's not fundamentally sound. And when you don't have somebody like Tyreek Hill, Tyreek Hill is a game-changing wide receiver. You have to understand that. Tyreek Hill is a game-changing wide receiver. You don't have that anymore. You've got Marquez Valdes-Scantling. You've got Juju Smith-Schuster. You've got all of these possibly great options for Patrick Mahomes. Juju played his entire career with Ben Roethlisberger. That's a great quarterback to come from. Valdes-Scantling played his entire career with Aaron Rodgers. That's a great quarterback to come from. But Patrick Mahomes plays the game differently than both of those guys. Very differently than both of those guys. So you have to take that into consideration. I think they're both capable of stepping up and filling in the role. But neither one of those guys are an over-the-top guy like Tyreek Hill was, where he can just kind of unload on a defense. But I like the Chiefs in this one. I just don't, like I said, I don't think that the Arizona Cardinals are fit to make a huge run this season. I think that they've regressed and they've lost too many pieces. The last afternoon game, Las Vegas Raiders and Los Angeles Chargers. Look, this should be the Monday night game, first of all. I don't care about Russell Wilson going to Seattle to play against the Seahawks because the Seahawks are going to be atrocious this season. The Raiders and Chargers should be Monday Night Football. Every single one of these AFC West matchups should be Sunday night, Monday night, or even Thursday. Throw it on Thursday night. You just signed that deal with Amazon Prime. You're going to start streaming Thursday nights on Amazon Prime. Get the audience tuned over. Get the audience tuned in. Switch over. The fact that this is a 4:25 game is kind of sad. When I look at the other matchups, though, that to me is the only other late afternoon game that interests me. So I'll definitely be tuned in to watch that. The Chargers are favored by 3.5. I think I have to give the nod to the Chargers. Um, and it's going to be a close game. I like the Raiders. I'm a big fan of Derek Carr. I know he's a polarizing quarterback. Some people like him, some people dislike him, but I'm a fan of Derek Carr. Pair him with Devontae Adams, a healthy Josh Jacobs, a healthy Darren Waller. I think, and you have to remember that Hunter Renfrow last season was the most sure-handed wide receiver in the NFL. But the Chargers won in the draft. The Chargers won in free agency. The Chargers got so much better, and they were already good. Justin Herbert has taken big steps forward, arguably leaps forward. But up until this point, Justin Herbert is kind of like a Kirk Cousins quarterback where he puts up great numbers. He looks great. But on the biggest stages, he doesn't perform that well. So I think Justin Herbert is kind of in the hot seat this season, and I think he's going to have a lot to prove. I'm very excited for this game. I'm really excited. Outside of Tampa and Dallas on Sunday night, this is probably going to be my favorite game to watch. Just looking through the slate here, I think that's probably going to be my game of the week to watch is the Raiders and Chargers. Sunday Night Football, Tampa Bay, traveling to Jerry's World. This is what you guys all tuned in for. I know. But we got to, come on, man. We got to talk about the slate. It's week 1. Chris Godwin is going to be a game time decision. He does not know if he's going to play. Russell Gage should be cleared to play. He was not on the injury report. Julio Jones had a Veterans Day off. The Bucs are only favored by 2.5, and I think that is, if you're looking for the Bucs to cover, they're going to cover. I don't like what I'm seeing from the Dallas Cowboys right now. Zeke played with a partially torn PCL last season. That's why he kind of didn't look right. I think that the 1-2 punch of Zeke and Tony Pollard is a dangerous combination. And I've said this at least a couple of times. When Dallas runs the ball 21 times or more over the last 2 years, they're undefeated. And that's only 7 total games. So I don't know why they don't run the ball as much as they do. Maybe that'll change this year. Dak is a little banged up right now. Michael Gallup is out, which means your sole focus is really going to be on CeeDee Lamb. Dallas almost had like an embarrassment of riches at wide receiver when they had Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, and Michael Gallup. They don't have that anymore. Is Trevon Diggs going to lead the league in interceptions? I don't think he's going to lead the league in interceptions again. Michael Parsons is, I don't want to say he's going to regress, but I think, he's, especially for a guy like Todd Bowles, because Todd Bowles is a defensive-minded head coach. He was a very successful defensive coordinator with the Cardinals, with the Jets, and with our Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He knows how to handle Micah Parsons. Tom Brady knows how to handle Micah Parsons. Tom Brady is older than every other. Tom Brady's older than half of the league. Like almost by double. Tom Brady and Todd Bowles are going to be able to neutralize, even with the questions that we have at offensive line. Todd Bowles and Tom Brady can neutralize Micah Parsons. Rachaad White is a fantastic pass blocking running back. He was the highest graded in preseason. His preseason grade was higher than Leonard Fournette's run blocking or pass blocking grade all last season. We know that Rachaad White can block. And that is arguably why we saw Rachaad White jump from 4th on the depth chart all the way up to number 2. That's why we saw that, in my opinion, is because Rachaad White is a damn good protector for the quarterback. And Tom Brady can't move. Tom Brady's never really been a mobile quarterback, and he's just getting older, which means he's getting less mobile. He's still beating you with his mind because he's just outsmarting defenses because there's really not a look that he hasn't seen and he hasn't exploited in his career. I think that we're going to see a Julio Jones outing. I think that Tom Brady is going to try and put the league on notice with Mike Evans and Julio Jones. You have to remember that while Trevon Diggs led the league in interceptions last season, he also led the league in yards given up as well. Look, if I'm being honest, if I'm the defensive coordinator, I'm not sure. I don't even know who the defensive coordinator is. Is it still Rod Marinelli? If I'm the defensive coordinator, if I'm Mike McCarthy, I'm worried about this Tampa Bay offense. Sure, they've got issues with the offensive line, sure. But damn it, I'm telling you what, it's such a dangerous offense at the skill positions. And that's what you have to watch out for. You have to watch out for the smarts and the intelligence of Tom Brady. You have to look at Todd Bowles being one of the better defensive coordinators of the last 10 to 12 seasons in the NFL, being able to read defenses and understand schemes. You know, he's better than Bruce Arians, and Bruce Arians was a great head coach. But Todd Bowles designs defenses and successfully has designed defenses for over a decade now. So you got to look at Todd Bowles and say, yeah, he's going to understand how to neutralize and how to fix the question marks that this offensive line does have. I got the Cowboys losing at home. I think they're going to lose by more than 2.5 for sure. Monday night, I don't think is going to be anything. I don't think Monday night's going to be interesting at all, to be honest with you guys. Denver's going to win, and they're going to win big. I don't know how much they're going to win by, but they're going to win big. That's kind of all I have on that. I think that they're going to win big. Denver's got way too many weapons. Denver last season was just a wide receiver away from being a Super Bowl contending team. They got their quarterback. They got one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL in Russell Wilson now. Jerry Jeudy missed a lot of time last season. He's back. Javonte Williams is back. They re-signed Melvin Gordon. That's another great 1-2 punch. You got to look at you got to look at everything here, guys. That's going to wrap it up for us. I hope you guys enjoyed this week 1 NFL slate rundown. Please tweet me. Jump on the Twitter machine. Look me up at Real Danny B. Follow the Channelside Sports Network on all of the social media platforms. Just search for the Channelside Sports Network. Thank you for those who tuned in and smashed the like button. Tag a friend, tell a friend. Channelside Sports is the future. I am Danny. This is Channelside in the Morning, live from the Channelside Sports Network. Everybody have a great weekend. Enjoy your Sunday. I'll see you on Monday.